In the last legislative session, Oklahoma lawmakers passed the Water for 2060 Act, which sets up the framework for long-term water conservation and planning initiatives. One goal of the act is to use no more fresh water 50 years from now than we do today. This week, the 33rd Annual Governor's Water Conference addressed how to achieve that. The conference began with looking at Oklahoma's past with excerpts from the Ken Burns documentary, The Dust Bowl.
It was just unbelievable. It'd blister your face. It would put your eyes out. Well, I guess I can't describe it. It was just constant, just that steady blow of dirt.
As far as you could see, there was a dust storm coming right towards you. This giant wall just coming towards you.
Ken Burns' 4-hour documentary, The Dust Bowl, which airs this Sunday and Monday on OETA, depicts the worst man-made ecological disaster in American history. It tells of the wheat farming boom called the Great Plow-Up, which preceded the decade-long drought during the 1930s that nearly swept away the breadbasket of the nation. The worst of it was centered in Boise City, Oklahoma. Attendees at the annual Governor's Water Conference this week in Tulsa saw portions of the film and heard from keynote speaker Dayton Duncan, who served as the principal writer for the documentary.
Embedded in it is a morality tale, a parable, though it's based on fact, about our relationship to the land that sustains us and the water that we need to sustain it. And those lessons are ones that we would ignore at our peril. So it's a film that's both about Mother Nature, but it's also about human nature.
The film doesn't end with the Dust Bowl disaster. It also tells what happened in the following decades when farming returned to the panhandle of Oklahoma.
But now, instead of looking to the skies for rain, many farmers began looking beneath the soil, where they believed a more reliable and irresistible supply of water could be found. The vast Ogallala Aquifer, an underground reservoir stretching from Nebraska to North Texas, filled with water that had seeped down for centuries after the last ice age. With new technology, farmers could pump the ancient water up, irrigate their land, and grow other crops like feed corn for cattle and pigs, which require even more moisture than wheat.
The only thing that's holding that ground together is that irrigation water that comes out of the Ogallala. The Ogallala is about 100 feet deep on the average. We've used over 50 feet of it now. We've got about 20 years of water left under these 8 states, or these portions of these 8 states, and it's disappearing. It's going to be gone in 20 years. If you lose the water, you're going to lose the land.
The Ogallala Aquifer is one of many areas of concern addressed at the conference.
The farmers that rely on that resource are probably the most worried about it. It is clearly the resource that makes the panhandle thrive. Texas County is the biggest water-using county in the state of Oklahoma. Most people think that would be Oklahoma County, and they're surprised to find out it's Texas County. But it's because so much of that water is used for crop irrigation. J.D.
Strong is the executive director of the Oklahoma Water Resources Board. He says efforts are being made to help secure the future of the aquifer.
Sure, that resource is continuing to be depleted, but the good news is it's being depleted at a much reduced rate relative to what it was when it was first tapped in the 50s for irrigated agriculture. And I think that great strides will continue to be made in the future with water efficiency and conservation and the development of new technologies and new crops that use less water.
Engineer Kevin Alexander is an expert on groundwater replenishment.
We're looking heavily at urban runoff and urban runoff storage, ways to get that urban runoff back into the aquifers and store and recover that water.
Engineering consultant Carl Stickley told conference attendees of using a cooperative interstate approach to conserve water.
This can be regional planning efforts. For instance, up in Kansas, six counties in Kansas and 3 counties in northern Oklahoma, to band together and look at what can they do as a region across state lines as a region to control the water use.
Karen Guz is the Director of Water Conservation for the City of San Antonio. She says San Antonio has invested in water conservation for 2 decades.
It's been illegal to waste water in San Antonio for, I think, about 20 years, and people take that to heart.
Guz says water customers in her city are constantly informed of the water level of the Edwards Aquifer, which is the water supply for San Antonio. When the water drops below a certain level, a water rationing program kicks in. She says residents call a hotline number to report violations or instances of water being wasted.
We respond to every single one, where we'll talk to the responsible party and let them know, give them a chance to fix it. But if you refuse, a police officer will visit you and counsel you that it would be a good idea to change that, because you could get a citation if you fail to correct your problem.
Guz says San Antonio is putting treated wastewater called effluent water to good use.
We've built that infrastructure to use our effluent as a supply. So we've got that going to some of our major customers like Toyota, like our golf courses, and some other big users are using high quality recycled water. It's in the Riverwalk in San Antonio. It's one of the biggest tourist attractions in Texas, the San Antonio Riverwalk, and people don't realize that's effluent water.
Recycling water, conserving water, and transporting water are key to achieving what is set out in the Water for 2060 Act, passed in the last legislative session. One of the Act's goal, using no more fresh water in 50 years than we do today. Strong says Oklahoma voters helped pave the way for that to happen last week.
So we were very pleased, though, to see that the voters of Oklahoma did sort of recognize that in some respect with passage of State Question 764 last week, which will definitely is a significant development and certainly will help make sure that we have the financing in place to meet those infrastructure needs for at least the next 50 years in the state. So that's certainly a very positive development.
The passage comes at a time when Oklahoma is now experiencing the same drought conditions that occurred during the Dust Bowl.